Hello, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is Season 8, Episode 20 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. It's slated to come out on November the 10th, 2025. And we're just officially past the Halloween spooky season, and now we're heading into the Thanksgiving season. So we're going to move into, we're still doing pumpkin, I guess, but we're going to move into a cider for today. This is the Headless Pumpkin Angry Orchard Headless Pumpkin Hard Cider, 5% ABV. There is no read on the can, but we looked it up earlier, and this is supposed to be a pumpkin spiced cider. So, uh, Ricky is sipping away. See what he thinks.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Angry Orchard. I think they do make some good like ciders that are often like they're kind of limited run, like the Angry Orchard IPA, which was like a
Yeah.
Indian pressed apple or something like that. I forget exactly what it was. Those were good. Some of their off flavor. Their main brand's not my favorite. It's not my go-to. But I think this keeps that same trend. This is probably one of their little specialty limited run things.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good. You know, we saw online, it was like, hey, there's pumpkin spice in this, and there's supposed to be like bakey, like crust type of thing. So kind of maybe they're going for like a pumpkin pie-ish or like a holiday apple pie-ish sort of kind of flavor. And I don't get much in like crust area, but it does taste a lot like just an alcoholic lighter version of like a holiday like non-alcoholic cider. Like you go out and you buy
Yeah.
fresh pressed cider and you throw like some cinnamon and some clove and like stuff like that in it. You let it heat up in the crock pot and you serve it with your meals and stuff. It's got that sort of flavor to it, which is pretty nice.
I there there it was an expectation when it said pumpkin spice
Yeah.
that it would taste a certain way like a pumpkin pie, where that just isn't happening here. So what I would say is if and we don't do number ratings, but if I had to say on a scale of ciders that I've had, like greatest to worst,
Mm-hmm.
this would be somewhere in the middle. It's not like the best cider I've ever had. Like generally that's going to fall like to a 1911 or something like that, but it's not the worst cider I've ever had.
Yeah, it's not a bad cider by any means. I think you're right though. I think for something called the Headless Pumpkin, you're expecting some sort of pumpkin. And I will go out on a limb and say I'm not sure I would be able to tell you the difference if you said, hey, and this has like apple pie spice versus pumpkin pie spice.
Which they're so
So
close.
they are very similar. So like maybe that's the direction they were going. It's like, hey, this, but instead of it having apple spices in it, it has pumpkin spices in it. The apple flavor is so strong because it is a little bit of a sweet cider that I think you just lose it. It just tastes like a really good spice cider. And so
Yeah.
this could have been probably marketed closer towards its actual taste.
I agree, and I mean it's slightly carbonated. There's lots of good things about it. It's just not a very, um, it's just not a very very like spectacular cider. I think that the cider that I make that's a
Hmm.
spice cider ends up being a better spice cider than this one, and that's not me. Mine's like a mid cider, I would say. Like it's good. I like it. It's not the best cider that's out there as far
Mm.
as like spice cider, and this is slightly not as good as that.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you want out of a cider. I think this hits the apple notes really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
You prefer a drier drink, so you lose a lot of that apple flavor when you go dry. That's just normal.
Yeah.
That's not like a brewing problem. That's just the sugars that make it taste like apple are gone. They've been turned into alcohol. But you do nail the actual spices a lot more.
Right.
Like that is a very strongly spiced cider. So I mean, I think for like mass consumption, I can see why this would be popular. I mean, I'll probably, if I see it at a good price, grab one because I do like a little bit of a sweeter cider. But yeah, it's not a call home about it.
Mm-mm.
But if you're one of those people that there's one of these available and you're kind of like one of those, Angry Orchard's kind of all right. This is better than the standard what I would call the Angry Orchard ones.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. So if you like Angry Orchard ciders, go and pick one of these up. If you're really into spiced ciders that are alcoholic,
Which
but
there aren't a lot of. I think that's
yeah,
kind of the problem. I think that's if I have to step back and compare the beer market and the cider market. You know, beer is very, very diverse. You can find a lot of different flavor profiles, and just not so much in cider. You either get a dry cider that's kind of just meant to be alcohol. I feel like it's kind of meant to be like or like IPA is a little bit too rough
Yeah.
for you, but you want a light drink. Here's this really dry cider because they don't generally don't have a lot of spices. Or here's now the fruit flavored something.
Hmm.
So it's either a strong apple or it's like an apple and a different fruit as they put together, and it's meant to be like more of a sweet drink. It's like a cocktail replacement type of deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't get the diverse, like if you just put like beer on a scale where you've got like IPA on there, but also like stouts and porters, but also like sours, and then even their own range of fruit stuff like fruit beers. Like fruit beers have a better range than most ciders do.
Yeah.
When you look at like manufacturers and the lines of stuff they bring out, so I can see that. I think like the stuff that you make is just something they never put on the market. And so when we say if you're someone that likes a really heavily spiced cider, I think what we're saying is if you're someone who doesn't like market cider, which is why you make your own heavily
Yeah.
spiced cider.
Well, I also was saying like the stuff that you would get at like Christmas time or something, like either a warmed up or non-alcoholic
Oh,
cider.
I see.
Like
Yeah,
if you
just
like
talking
spiced,
true. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
if you like spiced cider that's not
Hmm.
alcoholic, you might like this because it's a little bit sweeter and it's crisp and refreshing, but it's also spiced.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like if you're a person who doesn't like Martinelli's, like you don't like a clear cider,
Hmm.
but you do like a nice little holiday, get a cup out of a crock pot type of deal, then this is closer to that end of the spectrum.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I could see this like if you warmed it up or something, it'd lose some of its carbonation, but it would be like still very like unctuous and
Maybe we'll
spiced.
let it warm up and try it some. I think it's so light that might be difficult. I
No,
think really,
I meant heated, like in a
yeah, no,
pot.
I do. I mean,
Like if you put a cinnamon stick in it and you heated it in a pot, I could see this being like something that would taste like more closer to that thing than what you would get if you put a Martinelli's or something like that in a crock pot and tried to spice it up. This
see, I'm
has
the
like
exact opposite. I think this is Martinelli's if you then heated it up and you put a bunch of stuff into it. Is how you get that flavor
well,
because
then
the juice itself is so light. You
I
know.
got you. I got you. Well, what you know what? Maybe I'll buy another one of them, and I'll buy
Hmm.
some Martinelli's, and I'll try it in two different heated platforms and just see
Yeah, we could definitely try it.
what happens. Let's talk about Sora though.
Yeah.
So OpenAI, which most nerds know about, OpenAI opened up a video creation platform called Sora. It's not hard to get an invite. Have you gotten an invite yet?
Maybe I get so many little AI invites that I just all go to like promotions.
You have
and
to
stuff.
like request the invite. So
Yeah, but I mean, I probably did at some point when I was doing that deep dive because this isn't the first version of their AI platform stuff. They had video generation before.
yeah,
On a
but this
different
is the
thing.
first. This is the first one under Sora, like that you could get into. But so it's not the first video generation. It is the first one that they're doing, like where they have like the public open like beta or whatever they're calling
Yeah.
it for this particular one.
I thought they had an older version they did an open beta for. I'm sorry, a closed beta for.
They might have.
Yeah, because I know I signed up. I thought it was Sora. Maybe I'm wrong, but I know I signed up for one with this company before. Which
Okay.
is why I said maybe I got an invite and I just haven't looked at it. Because I had that run where I was like really into AI, and then I kind of learned the academic side of it,
Yeah.
and I lost a little bit of interest.
It's not. It's nothing super special, but they get people's hands right. Like you don't get spaghetti fingers
I mean,
and stuff like that.
I don't know, dude. I've seen some of the Sora stuff that comes through when people are really trying,
Uh-huh.
and it's not bad.
No, it's not.
And that's kind of my concern because like I've seen tons of the little meme videos, and the meme videos are great because they're very low effort. So like for being able to write in a prompt and then get this little video to watch that you can tell is not real, but it is still really funny because it's like a little crazy situation. Like they got all these like pets that are
Yeah.
like have magic powers or something, and they show up at a door, and it's a dog that when it barks, it shoots like fire hose water out of its mouth and just like blows the door away and stuff like that. Those little things are funny and humorous. But I have seen the videos people have made where they're trying to like emulate a person, where I think actually, not and from when this will release, but yesterday in time of recording, I watched Neil deGrasse Tyson did a video about people who have been trying to impersonate him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some that are the kind of low effort. It's like, what if Neil deGrasse Tyson was a baby and there's a little
Yeah.
baby Neil deGrasse Tyson talking? But then there's also ones of people, in his opinion, are not trying to be malicious, but they are trying to like bring attention to a topic, and they're using him kind of as a platform to do it. But then he goes back and researches it, and then like 10% of the video isn't right,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. That's causing problems. And like I watched those videos, and they're not perfect. As if you really know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is, and you watch like the shorts and stuff of him that are legitimate, you can kind of tell it's not him. Mostly just in the voice. You're like the inflections of this are not quite right, but that requires pre-existing understanding of his speech patterns. Like visually, it's there, and he actually brought some people on that were friends of his that had been tricked by them. That he had they'd reached out to him and was like, I just saw your latest video, that's really cool, tell me more about this topic. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think Sora is really that first step into AI video generation that we can start to say, okay, this is reaching a dangerous level. Because I think we've talked about on the podcast before, my mother used to watch these like AI videos of it's like telling a story of something, and it's so obviously fake. Even she could tell it was fake because it's such a robotic voice, and the stories don't really make sense, and there's generally just like a generic video playing in the background. But now we've got real, fairly low effort. This is a person talking that sounds pretty. I mean, they sound like a person. They might not sound like quite the right person, but if you don't know who they are, if all you know is their face, that's that person.
Well, so you can also let me back up a little bit. With this one, you have to in order to do something that someone else is in,
Mm-hmm.
you have to you couldn't say put Neil deGrasse Tyson in this. You would have to tag him, and then he has to approve it that he's in the thing in Sora without trying something to get around the bounds of it or something like that. So when you sign up, you do a thing where they scan your face and they do your voice, and then you'll read some stuff and everything, and then you can tag yourself and say, at me, I want to sound like, or I want to do this. I made one where I was leader of an adventuring party from Dungeons and Dragons, and then a black dragon appears and attacks them, and it's like a black dragon that kind of sounds like James Earl Jones, jumps out of the sky and lands in front of us. I'll show you the video a little bit later. But I did a couple things, but it kind of got pretty close to my inflections, my voice.
Yeah.
And that's I know that's what you're referring to. And I was like, I could do some interesting things with this. Now you can only do 15-second videos, but you can string them together.
Yeah.
So there's interesting things there. I did one where 3 raccoons in a coat came to the door trick-or-treating and used my likeness to be the person at the door. And it was kind of goofy and funny. But there's all sorts of things that you can do with them that seems pretty innocuous, but I can see where there's good things here, right? But there's also things to be concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, I would say think about it from this direction. Obviously there are some ways to get around those protections because those videos are getting made. But even if there weren't, now at least the company has the data to generate your likeness and stuff like that. And as we talk a lot about on this show, security's not always the best in the world. And so, eventually this is a proprietary thing right here. People will learn how to emulate it. There will become free AI video tools of a similar quality.
There already are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do think what I'll give Sora is I think it's so much easier to generate that good content with what they've done. I think a lot of how their prompt engineering works and stuff like that is very, very good. because I've got other little AI instances still on my computer for making videos, and those are much more difficult to work with. I mean, much more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
You can make a good video out of it, but you got to sit down and you got to try.
Yeah.
Whereas your data gets leaked, and someone's just like, give me a tall blonde guy with a beard, and you're now not you're not Joe anymore.
Yep.
You're a guy in the matrix of characters that can be played. They're like, and have him rob a bank, and have him do this, and have him do that. And I would hope as a society, by the time that's becoming more prevalent, I don't know, I guess we just don't trust anything anymore.
Yeah, it does make any video stuff that you have that comes out hard to believe.
Yeah, it's gonna you can already see it in the youngest generations, because like my daughter struggles with it because she watches YouTube sometimes, so she's not unaware of AI generated content, but she can't tell the difference between an AI generated something and a not AI generated something, and so she's always taking this stance now that like if it's something that seems like a little too much, she's like, that's got to be AI.
Yeah,
that AI's that. And so already we're instilling in these young kids like, don't trust anything. If anything is outside your expectations, it might be AI.
There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like we should have been doing that for a long time with our videos and audio recordings and things like that, and not because of AI, just because people lie. Sometimes we get in situations where something weird happens, and like that's some sort of special effects thing or something like that. There's all sorts of things that happened even before this that were like hoaxes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That people were able to pull off because people just kind of trusted that's on a reputable platform, that has to be true, and that's not always been the case. And I think when we're talking about something like this, the good thing of it is it kind of wakens us to the fact that those things exist.
Yeah.
The bad thing about it is now it's in the hands of the masses, which is, okay, the good and the bad thing, I don't want to say it's bad, is that it's in the hands of the masses and anyone can do anything they want to with it. Now, does that mean that we should limit it and all those other things? I don't know. I don't think that's right. I think taking away people's freedoms are generally a bad thing. It is both concerning and very, very interesting from a technology standpoint.
Yeah.
I think that you're right. There are things that can give you as good a quality as Sora. There are not many things that are as easy to use.
Yeah, it's accessible. Very true.
But Sora has more guardrails than those things that are harder to use.
That's true.
So like, it's a trade-off. OpenAI now has my likeness and my voice and can make videos that look and sound like me. That is problematic, especially since eventually someone somewhere is going to make a mistake and they're going to open up an AWS bucket or something like that.
Yep.
And a lot of information is going to get leaked from OpenAI. And if we say, oh no, they're too smart, they're too this, they're too that, there's always someone that's smarter, more talented, or luckier than you are.
Luckier is a big one. The people just make mistakes. Know, you're never gonna go who in the world can go their whole life and not make a mistake or make a mistake at work? Most people are gonna make a mistake at work multiple times a year.
Yeah.
Maybe more than multiple times a year, depending on what your position is and how difficult it is and stuff like that. Things happen. We put as many safeguards as we can, but almost every data leak is in some way timed back to a bad human action.
Yeah.
We didn't update our system, or we thought it was updated but it wasn't updated, or somebody got malware on their computer and it had their password on it saved when it shouldn't have had their password saved on it, so now someone was able to log in as them and then start taking data. And this is kind of the problem of technology. It's an amazing tool, but all technology, even artificial AI stuff, is ultimately dumb. Even our best AIs are just really advanced pattern recognition.
Yeah.
And when you're training it off of things that are not perfect, like people, it will make mistakes too. It's going to recognize patterns and do its best. I was talking to someone who's not in IT about AI and that exact thing just yesterday. because we were going around doing trick-or-treating stuff, and I said, think about it like this. While the problems AI is solving are massively more complex, but just imagine all day, every day, you're given one of those worksheets you got from school, where it was like, here's a pattern of numbers with like a couple missing, or like saying, and what's the next number going to be? Will you get that right 100% of the time? And he was like, like, even if they're simple, like even if they're like stuff you did in school, like you have done them before, if you had to do 1,000,000 of them in a row, would you always get it right? And the answer is no, it's not possible. It's like, yeah. So it's the same thing. When you scale up now to infinitely more complex problems, you're asking someone to pattern recognize an entire book, as these AI generated books and stuff like that.
Yep.
There are going to be mistakes. You want to pattern recognize a difficult part of law, there will be mistakes, because it's still just pattern recognition. It's not true intelligence.
Well, also, it's as flawed as humans, evidently, in some ways, because it's not like perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And it's human. Maybe we can even say maybe it's better. I'm not here to try and pull up the academic numbers on what's more error prone,
right?
AI or a well-trained human, but neither one of them are perfect. And so you almost have to treat AI like you would a person, in that sense of, you're going to make a mistake sometimes. I'm sure if someone sat here on this podcast, even though both you and me are very educated people, we're professionals in our field, some would say we're experts in our field. If you come through this whole podcast, I am sure many, many times we have been wrong about something.
Yeah, we've either made factual errors, or we've made errors in like something that we've said like was the right way to do something.
Yeah, exactly. People will make mistakes. AI are going to make mistakes. And maybe now we've taken the topic a little bit in a different direction,
yeah,
so we get
have.
back on track. But, Sora making cool videos, that's awesome. Be hesitant about how gullible people are and where you put your likeness.
Well, also, I kind of think, what's the ultimate goal here? Because they're not dumb. They're collecting this to do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
So what is their ultimate goal? What are they going to end up doing?
I think the ultimate goal is replacement of traditional media. I think, in all honesty, I don't think like human created media is going away. But I know when Sora was coming out, people were making like putting these clips together to make like small TV shows and stuff like that. And hey, Joe, you're gonna be an extra.
Yeah,
you're gonna be some guy in a background in a coffee shop,
some dude in the background in a coffee shop, and they're not gonna have to pay you for your
because they've just got your likeness and the training data because you signed that away when you did this other thing.
Exactly.
And also just like the more faces you have to train on, the more voices you have to train on, the better you get rid of those problems with inflection and stuff like that.
Right.
So I'm sure some of it is just better training of the model, just get it better and better and better and better. But ultimately, where the money is coming from is probably, hey, studio, pay me a $250,000 a year subscription fee, and then you don't like how much recording you actually have to do in person drops down really low. Like, even if you want your main talent still there and they're on green screens, you're going to have the best backgrounds with, you don't need to pay extras anymore. You don't need to do, like, if you want cars in the background, you don't have to have cars. We'll generate it for you. And now, like, everything's on an AI backdrop or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. Or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would be surprised if it's something else. But, I mean, they could also be looking for lifelike avatars for AI. Like, they're looking to create something that like can look like a person or something like that, digitally, possibly even like manufacturing some sort of lifelike, robotics for an artificial intelligence. But I think that's probably a bigger future stretch than like the immediate of you're going to become an extra in something.
Yeah, if they were also producing robotics, I'd be more in line with that. But in all honesty, data's data. At some point, someone's going to want to do something like that, and they can then say, hey, I've got scans of 100,000 people.
They're closely tied to other companies that are producing those robots. I mean, Amazon's already trying to do this with their in-house robot building. Then you got Boston Dynamics and other things like that, and all of them are connected to to OpenAI in some way, shape, form, or fashion.
Yeah, but that's
But what I'm
yeah.
saying is, if they're selling the likeness, they've got your likeness, and then they're trying to sell it to like the personalized robot butler that Boston Dynamics creates. Boston Dynamics doesn't have to go and do that research. They can pull it from OpenAI. They can buy that from OpenAI.
Yeah, I
But that's
see
a
that
bigger
more as
stretch.
that's like, well, it's not a stretch. It's just that's probably not primary objective.
Yeah.
Like, is that great side income, or is that a great like blowback for like what they're not like a kickback from what they're actually doing? Sure. I mean, probably. I think you're 100% right. You're going to sell your data
Yeah.
as soon as you don't need any more. You look for other people who want it. But I think if they're putting their money, time, and effort into video generation, probably they want your data to better that video generation in
Yeah.
some way. Either it's marketability by being able to say, hey, we've got more people in it so you can make stuff, or through the just training of like, hey, you know, it's hard to get people to come in and do scans and stuff like that when what you're saying is, yeah, I'm going to take your likeness, I'm going to own your likeness, and I'm going to give you like $100 for it.
Yeah.
You know, because they're not, you know, they need so much data. They're not out there saying like, 20,000 to do it. You know, but as soon as they have a tool, it's like, hey, Joe, you want to make some videos, right? Just give us your likeness, and you can make some videos. A lot of people do that. I mean, tons
Yep.
of people do that. So videos are everywhere because tons of people are doing that. You know, so as soon as they have something they can give you to make it worth it, their amount of training data just explodes.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, this is the Facebook thing. They're
Mm-hmm.
basically giving you nothing and taking everything that you lay out there for them to use. And eventually, I mean, OpenAI has already shown that they'll just take whatever they want, anyways.
Yeah,
Um,
they don't have the best track record
no,
of
they do not. They're not like they put open in the name, but moral and open do not equate to the same
yeah.
thing. They're not exactly a moral company. Now, you might ask yourself, why did I do this? Because I'm pretty much a proponent of like, because I wanted to research it, I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
understand it. And the only way you can really get into it is to get into it, right? Um, so I really wouldn't suggest that anybody else does this. I haven't like gone around saying, hey, buddy, do you want to get in this? We can make a TV show together or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that, you know, because for this very reason, um, I don't really think that any of this is a good use of technology in this way. I feel like it is setting us up for kind of failure. And
Mm-hmm.
we could be like working on things like curing cancer and stuff like that. Instead, we're like generating 15-second video clips for people. Like AI has like such a huge promise for being able to do pattern recognition in the medical field, for doing things like research into new elements and things like that, that we could really be investing there. But as a society, we would rather be entertained than,
Yeah, well,
you
as
know,
a society, it's hard to, because again, like all of these companies, they're not asking anything of you other than you giving over stuff that you would consider free. You know, it's like if there was a tool out there, which I mean, this is true. I forget what the name of it was, but remember that there was that little protein folding game
yeah,
that
you can still run it. It's
yeah.
folding at home.
Yeah, and people got onto it. They actually solved some stuff because there
Hmm.
was something they could actually do. If we had some AI tool that we could put people in and them playing with it was both fun and also solved a problem, people would do it.
Yes.
The problem is we just don't have that there. What we have is, hey, I've made a cool little fun thing you can play with, and I want your data.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people will make that jump, and they're like, I could really use a free little fun thing in my life right now.
But that's exactly
Because,
what I'm saying.
mm-hmm.
Like we could be working towards things like that, like a video generation tool that like solves cancer or finds new elements for us to use and synthesize, new ways to make batteries, whatever.
Yeah, I'm just
That
saying
would
that
be
I
awesome.
don't think that's on the like consumers. I think really we need to start asking ourselves when is AI going to get to a point that the people who have problems they want to solve have access to it in a way that they can make those things that people can help them with stuff. You know, right now when we say we're spending all this time and effort, it's rich people throwing money into AI hoping it will make them more rich.
Yes,
You know.
I agree with you that it's not on the consumers from that standpoint. But if consumers didn't use it, it would flop. So the fact that we're using it does encourage them to continue doing things in this way. If we, stood up and were like, that's just too much for us. We can't do that. That's too spooky. What are you going to do with this data? Like we ask those questions, then these things wouldn't get the data that they needed to be able to continue on. Like Facebook wouldn't have been, if no one used Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg wouldn't be where he is right now, essentially.
Yeah, but also, I mean,
not that I'm blaming people.
Yeah, well, just all products are now they're so over engineered in the level of like human psychology. Like, even though, like, I'm going to put a scenario here. I'm not saying this is true, but OpenAI could be coming out here and they're saying like, hey, we know we want more training data. We know people will give it to us if we have the right set of things that make them feel just safe enough, that make them feel just this stuff. A lot of those are like, hey, and you can at me and no one can make a video without your permission. They don't moralistically care about that. What they've done is done a study and found that, hey, if you don't have that, people won't sign up. People will put their foot down.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is get just over that threshold that people will be like, you know what, and this is okay. And then maybe a month later, once they see what people are doing with it, they're like, oh, this isn't okay, but it doesn't matter because you got it a month ago.
Exactly.
There's still, I think, a lot of predation on the products themselves that are being designed to be consumed and to be used, and throwing millions of dollars at like, let's get the psychologist in here and figure out exactly where is that line that we need to cross that will get the result we want. You know? So at a certain point, I think it's easy where we're sitting right now to say, after this has already been out for a while and people are seeing the videos, we're already starting to see the bad things people are doing with it, of like, hey, yeah, you probably shouldn't go out and do this. But when it was first announced and everyone was going crazy for it because it was like, this is a cool thing and it's so safe and it's so protected, and these type of videos can't be made, and then we find out they could be made, those people that signed up then, just like with you, like when you probably signed up for it, there wasn't all this drama around it yet.
No, I signed up specifically because of the drama.
Okay. Well, I mean, there are people who I'm sure that have signed up that didn't. That they signed up early, or, like some of these influencers, like, there's all these YouTube personalities that are getting these videos made of them and stuff like that. I'm sure they signed up because, like, hey, this is the cool hotness. They've assured us this is safe, and we want to be able to show it off to our audiences and stuff like that. And, they were just fed another lie, which is just kind of what comes out of a lot of these data companies and things. Like, even our, this was maybe a couple years ago now on the podcast. We talked about some of these little AI tools that were starting to do like tech-based adventures.
Oh yeah, the open dungeon and stuff like that.
Yeah, things like that. I forget which one it was because this happened over a year ago now. The company went down, but the company started to struggle, and then it came out that company, even though they said they weren't, was saving every single prompt you generated.
AI Dungeon is the name of it.
Yeah. And so then there was that big scandal of like, hey, were you doing something? And like, it's explicitly tied to you. It's not really anonymized. We know that the person who had this account typed in all of these prompts. We've saved every single one of them. That's a privacy violation because that's not what they said they were going to do with it.
No.
And that was like a small little company just doing stuff, So like, sure, hindsight 2020, we probably shouldn't have gone and signed up for that and played with stuff, because even if we didn't put anything in there, we wouldn't mind the world knowing. They still saved it when they were making it seem like they weren't going to save it.
Exactly. And I mean, we went through it. We did our fun tests and stuff like that. But you're right. That is exactly the sort of thing that makes me think now that all of this stuff is just gonna come back and bite us. Like it's not gonna be used for good as much as I want it to be. It could be used for good. It's just not going to be, probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be mixed bag. I'm sure there will be some great things that come out of it, but there will also be a bunch of bad things that come out of it. Just like anything else people make. We made plastic. Plastic was great. Plastic solved so many problems. Now we got microplastics everywhere destroying the environment. Lead was awesome. Lead made paint stick better. It made pipes work better. It made gas work better. Lead's in the air and we're getting sick.
Yeah.
And that's just human vision. We're not omnipotent. We don't know what the consequences of our actions are always going to be. But you can trust we're always going to make new things.
In this particular case, we have a track record of people that are not.
Yeah, but see now we're all. But see, here's what I'm saying though. We're already at this point in the messed up things happening phase.
Yeah.
When we dial the clock back 20 years ago and we say there were a couple
Oh, when we
AI
started making
scientists in a
AIs,
room who
yeah,
were like,
that,
yeah, I bet we could get AI to do image generation. And this would be huge because this is going to allow us to like expand art and human creativity. And like there were good people with good motivations that got it started. And now we're kind of in the capitalist hellscape of it.
yeah, I'm not.
You know?
I'm not criticizing those people.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone should. Those people had good intentions, or we don't know what their intentions were. I'm talking more like this new tool's come out. It's the new hotness. Should you be hopping on the new, Facebook?
Yeah, yeah.
Sora generated whatever. No, you probably shouldn't, and you never should. This is cool, but this is also dangerous, like in a lot of different ways, and it's useless. It's not useful, and much like so. Okay, does cloud computing save money when you run at a huge scale? So like you're doing something like an on-prem data center, or like you're just storing the same amount of stuff that you would locally on a NAS in the cloud. The absolute answer to that is no. It doesn't matter how much money I spend on power and stuff like that. I'm always going to come out cheaper in the long run. If I buy my own hardware, I build it, I just have to maintain it.
Yeah.
And that's the cost of that. And a lot of people don't want to do it. So they're willing to give that over to someone else for the convenience of it. And then they, get it's cheaper if you do this. It's only $5 a month, which is cheaper than running a computer at home if you're running this one particular thing. What if I'm running 50 things?
Yeah.
Well, then it's not cheaper. What if I have like a constant flow of data between my home and this location, or I have people that are like logging into the website, or I'm trying to use it to like back up files and stuff like that. When it gets to that like actual usage where you're using it on a regular basis, it becomes like $50, $60, $70 a month for the like consumer.
Yeah.
When you start looking at things like a corporation or a small business or something like that using the cloud, there are some cloud services that are fairly cheap because they're taking things like your data and stuff like that, which they say isn't very valuable, but then they're able to make billions of dollars off of it. Clearly it's valuable, but they're taking that data and they're using it to do whatever they're going to do, or they're charging you, an amount just so you don't have to have stuff on your premises.
Yeah.
This is kind of the same thing. You've got a television company that's like, hey, we want to cut the cost of actors, we want to cut the cost of this, we want to cut the cost of that, and they get these likenesses, and for a little bit it probably will be cheaper because that's the same model that cloud computing used, and then they're going to start reselling this data, they're going to do things like that, they're going to make money hand over fist, and it's eventually going to be more expensive probably than the original. I just hired an actor, off the street to work as an extra in a coffee shop for 10 minutes. I think that is a slight danger. And then when you start talking about things like data breaches and problems like that, it's going to kind of blow up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's, it'll be interesting to see where all that goes. Because you're right, at some point, you got to monetize a product, and not just the data. And it'll be interesting to see how those hit industries. Like we're already seeing it in other places. Companies are very dedicated to replacing low-level employees with AI, even if it doesn't work very well.
Yep.
And I think the collective brain rot of media is going to make that even lower bar. I mean, as long as the content's engaging, does that background actually have to be perfect?
Yeah.
Does it matter that one of those extras kind of turned into a different person halfway through?
Yeah.
That just becomes a fun Easter egg on the YouTube video. I can see it. I can see it being a big problem for media generation companies and stuff or I guess the people in them. The companies probably love it.
Yeah.
Because I will push back. I don't think it'll be cheap. It'll be more expensive. It will be cheaper because it has to be cheaper for people to switch over to it. But it's not going to be cheaper in the way probably people think. It's not going to be that like, oh, hiring the guy for the coffee shop is somehow more expensive. What it's going to be is, hey, now your whole background is generated and it's going to be pretty good. And if you don't like it, you can hit retry and it'll make you a new one. And now it's not so much about the actors that are in that shot. It's how many fewer editors do you need? How many fewer sound producers do you need? How many fewer other like highly skilled trained professionals do you need? And that's where your money savings coming from.
Yeah, I think that probably will be the way it's spun, but I think the reality of it is going to be that it drives prices up all the same way that cloud computing is done. There are people who, and I know we know people who like make their living off cloud computing, and it is cheaper for them because they know how to use it the right way. But then there are people who they need it to do certain things, and it doesn't work that way. This will only work if it shoehorns into that specific use case that you're trying to use it for. And for those people, it will be cheaper. Absolutely. But once you start branching outside of that, or you start doing something, it's going to become astronomically more expensive. I'm positive of it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I've not. We'll talk. Maybe talk about it when it's on the podcast because I know we're already dragging these videos.
Yeah, we're like 40 minutes in.
But I've not seen too much evidence of that once you weigh in the complexity of hiring and maintaining the employees. Because I know some companies that I used to work for that have switched to cloud, and ultimately that's not working for them as well as on-prem did. But it has been cheaper for them because they went from having to have a much larger IT team to a smaller IT team. When they went from like an 8-person shop to a 1-person shop, the difference in cost is in there. Now the difference in quality might be. There definitely are having to do workarounds and stuff like that. But when you say you're not going to have to pay 7 professionals, unless that their cloud solution is costing them like $700,000 a year more than on-prem, which it isn't, they still save money.
I don't know what their use case is, so I can't comment on that. They probably are working within one of the constraints that cloud computing is set up to work with, and that saves them money. What I'm talking about are cases where someone decides to move all their backups to the cloud, which a lot of companies have versus an on-prem backup solution.
Yeah.
And there is generally, once you hit a certain tier, it becomes more expensive, and then it like starts ramping up, especially to like retrieve that data or something like that. It is there is a cost that goes up the more that you use the cloud more you use other people's computers to do things. That goes up more and more and more the more that you use them, is what I'm saying.
True. And I mean, there could be something to be said of scale there. Like most of the people most of like the anecdotal evidence I have is from smaller companies, a couple hundred people or less. So yeah, if you're 30,000 employees, maybe it stops becoming as good a deal for you.
Yeah.
But then also, if you're 30,000 employees, you're probably making so much money. Having that 20-30 person IT team to maintain it isn't that big of a barrier for you.
Right. It might not be a big deal, or it might be. I don't know. Like it just has to kind of balance itself out. So, yeah. Let's talk about the Jeep software update that bricks the 2023 to 2025.
Yeah, so
Jeeps.
talking about cloud, right?
Yep.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at all that we're bricking cars by accident. It is very scary that it can brick it on the middle of the road, which again, but I'm not that surprised by. This is going to sound really bad because I think the article says it for real, so don't trust my number. Go read the article and get the number it had. I think it said something like 27,000 cars got recalled.
Yeah.
It's somewhere in that ballpark, I think. That number struck me as low, and I kind of wanted that number to be bigger. Not because I wanted more people to be at risk or more people to lose their cars, but like this is the classic problem that people have been talking about, especially like you can just shut your car off in the middle of the road and that could potentially cause an accident.
Yep.
I kind of wanted it to be a massive number because then it can just be like, hey, law, finally do something.
But it also may be every Jeep that might be all the Jeeps.
That could be, yeah. That could be all
the
ones they've sold. I'm not saying necessarily like it's only a small chunk that were impacted. It's just that like if that number was 200,000, there'd be a lot more people talking about it.
Yeah, that definitely would be. And
Because those other more common cars that they are 200,000 of them on the road are just as susceptible. It's not like they're not at risk of this too.
this is one of the crazy things about having something that has required updates for its infotainment center.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? Like, why? Why don't I get to opt into that? I bought this thing.
Yeah.
This belongs to me. That I physically have possession of this item. How do you get away with demanding that I put whatever software you want me to put onto this thing on this thing? That is just so scummy.
Yeah.
I mean, I can pretty much put whatever I want to on my computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't put whatever I want to on my phone. But there's at least ways for me to do that, and they're legal for me to do.
Yeah.
There's arguments about computer consoles, video game consoles, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason that I'm willing to put up with that is not life or death for me.
Yeah.
It is an entertainment thing. I can spend money on it if I choose to. I cannot. I can let it sit there. I can, play it. I don't have to do that. A car is something, especially in America, that you have to get from point A to point B for the most part. And when you're saying, and admittedly, people that are able to buy 2023 to 2025, which are newer model cars, are going to have more disposable income.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, when you're talking about having something that is not just going to impact you, it's going to impact the other people around you because you can hurt or kill somebody, and it's kind of required, and you're not putting guardrails on it to make sure that you don't brick it, and you're automatically, like, that is just insane. It makes me never want to buy a Jeep again.
Yeah. Well,
I've never bought one, but it makes me never want to buy one.
I was listening to like a human behavioral scientist that does stuff for companies, and they'd asked him a bunch of questions, but one that really stuck out to me was like, are there any industries that you think that like if trade barriers dropped would be like really, really impacted? And I think people were expecting a lot of like manufacturing stuff to be mentioned of like, oh yeah, if we didn't have tariffs on X, then just all production of X would go over to this company. And he didn't hit imports, and he said, we can't allow China to import all of their car brands into our country because it will destroy the auto industry. And it was because China does still make cars that don't have all this crap in them.
Yep.
Now they've got tons of cars that they talk about maybe will allow in. A lot of their like AI cars and how that would be bad for our AI stuff, and we're all talking about the AI things. He took a different direction. Said you can still, even once you pay import costs, China would be able to put a car in a lot that you can buy that's $18,000 that has no info console on it at all, anything like that. You'd still be able to have your electric, like open and lower your windows and stuff like that. But like none of this other stuff, none of this other junk, and they sell it super cheap. And market data shows that those cars would just sell, and it would completely destroy a lot of the like staple car brands. Like people wouldn't buy Civics as much anymore because how many people with a Civic just want a sedan that just can get from point A to point B, and they can sell it cheaper because it's got less stuff, and people like it now because it has less stuff.
Right. Yeah, you're going to start getting like aficionados that like this particular car brand, because they like the way that the engine runs or something like that, or what they can do to it. And those are going to be the only people that are going to buy like the, soup up cars or something like that. You're not going to have like your mom, who's like working 3 jobs and just needs a car to get her from point A to point B, buying one of those off the used market. If they can get something that's like $5,000 used, it is dependable, reliable, easy to work on, all that other stuff.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, absolutely. Is that the right move though? Should we not allow China to do that? I mean, if our American car companies can't compete at that level, that's just artificially saying we're keeping competition out in our economy.
Yeah.
Because
we won't get into, I think, the politics of it, but I think a lot of the problem with blocking trade with China is that like ultimately everything in China is owned by the government, and so like if we're in a not so friendly place with the Chinese government, if we allow, because we don't allow a lot of imports from China, and that's kind of the thing. It's less to always protect our stuff, but it's more like, China keeps talking about this Taiwan stuff, and I think, did we talk about on the podcast like how Taiwan's just like rigged to explode?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like taking Taiwan's just,
We didn't talk about it on the podcast.
we talked about the podcast. Well, then for people on the podcast, just so you know, the reason Taiwan is such a talked about thing compared to like other territories that these big kind of crappy countries just eat up all the time is that a lot of chip manufacturing comes out of Taiwan. It's the best chip manufacturing in the world, that we don't have factories other places to emulate. Like they can just make smaller chips that are required, and it's not a fast thing to bring those other places. Like there is talk of trying to bring that manufacturing into other countries in the world, but it's massively complex. Like the building's on shocks to keep it level, because if the building itself is not perfectly level, it messes up chip production at that tiny amount. Like we're talking, the little symbol in front of the M that I don't remember which one. It's like smaller than millimeters. It's like these are small little chips that they are able to produce on these wafers.
Yeah.
And so that's required for modern technology. Can't overstate that. It's not if that went away, it would suck because we'd have fewer chips. It would be, if that went away, it might be a decade or more before we could make modern computers again, type of deals. It's huge. It's massively internationally important. And so the way Taiwan keeps itself safe is those factories are rigged with explosives, and they will blow them up if China comes in. It's like China can't be the only people that can make chips in the world.
Right.
So it's just the world will deal with it. And that's kind of what causes the stalemate. And it's less, and that's why other countries care so much. It's less that America really, really just loves Taiwan. It's just that if China took Taiwan, it's going to knock over a domino and things are going to really suck for a while.
Right.
So
I think the thing that I was saying is, all right, just forget the whole China thing. Mm-hmm. Forget China exists. If there is a car that is made that everyone, for the most part, would want to buy because it doesn't have all this extra crap in it,
mm-hmm.
then the problem isn't that car exists and you should block it from existing. The problem is that the manufacturers now are not listening to what people want.
Oh, 100%, yeah. If that was a car being made in, Germany somewhere, and then you could import it, this wouldn't be a conversation. Modern cars today wouldn't exist, right? Because so many people would buy those older vehicles, and it would be a big enough chunk of the market that people really sit back, and what they would have is basic lines and enhanced lines and stuff like that. And then all the extra buttons cars become luxury cars.
Yeah.
Which is probably how it should be. Because there's a lot to be said about safety features. I think if I start to drift a lane, it tells me I drift a lane. If I put me back in the lane, that's awesome. That's good. That saves lives. Technology like that, people don't care about.
Right.
It's you're right. Oof. The app I don't use on my car needs an update, and they messed up that update, and now my car's shutting off in the middle of the highway.
My car does not work at all when I start to drive it. I didn't even know it. Like, they use a backdoor from my cellular signal to be able to update the app automatically. I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, or some license is up, my car doesn't, do the same thing anymore. Or opening this door to you need to pay us $40-50 a month to maintain some feature in your car.
Right.
Again, that's crap. Have a mechanical car that maybe has a couple of these little fancier things that are safety stuff, and just let it be that.
Yeah.
Sell your car based on the fact that you're producing it in a manner that you make a profit when you sell it, and that's good enough just to make a profit when you sell it. And people buy it because it's simple and it's super, super safe.
Yeah.
That's how cars were for so long.
And that's how they should be again.
It's kind of how they should be again.
Make cars go back to that, please. That would be so nice. But yeah, avoid Jeeps for sure. At least until they sort this out, because I wouldn't want to rent, buy, drive.
Yeah, it's like a particular model. It's in the article. You can look up and make sure you don't get one of those, which is wild to me too, because Jeep really doesn't put as much crap in their cars as most other manufacturers do. That's kind of the whole selling point of a Jeep, is it's got less crap in it. But it still got you. It was still there.
Well, they created their own infotainment system. they didn't want to use like CarPlay and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So, um, but that's it. That's the infotainment system. Why does that have access to shut down my car?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Because it runs on the rest of the hardware that runs the car.
No, they probably have a backdoor in there so that they can automatically shut your car off if you don't pay your payments or something like that.
I thought again, it's what they say versus what's true. I thought in the article it mentioned that what it was is it was hitting that bug, which was causing the basically CPU to restart. And it's the CPU having to restart that shut off everything else. Because there is a lot of other
it is, but why is that connected to everything else? That, like, okay, that is absolutely the case. But, like, why is the ASIC that runs the carburetor connected to the CPU that's in the infotainment system? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I thought it was I thought it was going upstream. Maybe that's wrong from that. I thought it was more this problem with all the electronics in the infotainment system was pushing stuff upstream and messing. Because like hardware, if it starts to receive bad electrical signals, will shut off as a safety feature. I thought it was more that. It was just really causing the whole system because it was one electronic component plugged into it messing up to restart.
I still like go back to know what I know about how cars work and everything like that, because like I can install my own car stereo systems and stuff like that. There's ways to negate that so that you don't send those feedbacks back. Why is that there? Why is that so poorly designed? That shouldn't be designed like that. That is just bad. It's one thing if there is a computer that exists within a car that helps to like manage the amount of oxygen to fuel ratio and all that other stuff. That's generally separated from anything that's like an infotainment or like anything like that. So like if I put in a new stereo, that like because that stereo doesn't work doesn't affect that other thing. Unless there's some sort of catastrophic failure in like the wiring harness or something, and that's overloading, like because it's sending too much electricity through things. But that's like everything gets damaged at that point. That's like not, and that shouldn't be controlled by the computer anyways. It's like like more of a physical fail safe in a car. So like, and it gets more complex than that. I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, but the point that I'm making is, and still the question that I would have is, why do you have all that stuff connected that shouldn't be connected together? And if you're going to say because of this, this, and this, then my question still stands. What's the ultimate goal of that happening? And my guess would be it's got to be something like tracking or the ability to shut down the car remotely or something like that, or start the car remotely, and that's all tied into the infotainment system because they wanted to be able to update that and app control it and stuff like that. So still shouldn't be that way. Like there's a way to put a remote starter into a car that doesn't require it to be tied to the infotainment system.
Yeah. I mean, you could be 100% right. My understanding of it was it's a lot like plugging an accessory into just like a regular motherboard. Is that if there's a problem with the electrical signal between those two components, it'll just shut everything off, which it does. Same thing in a computer.
Yeah.
Because there isn't that physical layer. Maybe that's the problem. There should have been a physical layer, and there normally is, but there isn't in this type of car. Something like that. But it highlights the problem that a car is now a vector that needs so much software support that when you buy it, it could work perfectly, but then because of some update, it doesn't anymore. And I think, as we talk about any other computer systems, they will become faulty. Someone will break into them.
Yep.
The idea that, because did it talk about actually what the update was?
They just said it was an update to the infotainment system.
Yeah, but which maybe I'm crazy here, but I would think my car does not need, my infotainment system does not need consistent updates outside of security patches. Like it doesn't develop new features,
No.
It's not like you turn on your car someday and your infotainment system now does something new. Unless I'm just wrong, that I don't, and maybe I am. There's more car people here. You're a better car person than I am.
Well, because of the way that they have those things set up, they could add functionality like new apps. So like say, if you only supported Spotify, Audible, and Google.
So there's a chance they do have it, but still it's internet connected. You're going to have to get security updates. It's an endless cycle of just like with any computer, sometimes you just turn your computer on and, oh, there's a bug. They're going to have to release a hot fix in 2 or 3 days. And that sucks. And that's my computer. And like, that's useful to me. But at the end of the day, the worst thing that happens is my computer doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I call my job and I say, hey, my computer's busted. And they're like, oh no, we'll send you another one or something. Because like, if it's my personal computer, you just deal with it. If it's your work computer, they could just give you another computer. When it's your car, that's not, you're not going to call you and say, hey, dealership, my car's got a bug.
Yeah.
And you're not going to call your job, and your job's not going to accept, oh, your car's busted. They're not going to say, oh my God, we'll send you a new car. That's not their responsibility. Like, it has such a bigger social impact for your car not to work than for your computer not to work.
Well, the way that I'm looking at this is, so you're kind of thinking about this from like the standpoint of a computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking at this from like the monitor, the computer, the keyboard, the mouse kind of standpoint. They're all different components to your setup for your computer, right? If your computer stops working, you can plug another computer into your monitor, keyboard, and mouse, and it continues to work.
Yeah, well, I guess more like I'm past that part of the info system. What I'm kind of talking about is how have we allowed cars to have the worst part of a computer about them, is that they are susceptible to issues and consistent updates.
That's exactly what I'm saying though. Those updates should be completely separate, like you're saying. And they like in my 2008 Toyota Highlander, right? That car has like a bunch of electronics and computing stuff and everything like that, but that's all offline. It doesn't require updates, nothing like that. It does what it's supposed to do. If there's some sort of defect or something, I have to replace a physical component.
Yeah.
I also have an infotainment system that I put into the car that is separate from that.
Yeah, but like also like maybe not in your car, but I know in my car, the regular just other stuff also has to receive software updates. We took it into a shop once, and the way they fixed it said, "Oh yeah, it hadn't been updated, so we just updated it for you real quick, and it worked again." Because it was like, and it was a more minor problem. It was like issue with like the console itself, and like it was showing warning lights that weren't actually supposed to be there. They had to go clear codes and then just update the software. But it's like, why should that be a thing?
That's exactly my point.
Why does any part of my car need to have updates?
Need to have an update that doesn't require, like, why is that not like more of a firmware built-in thing, and you just have to replace that component, or you have to do some sort of like really extensive process? It's not just plug in an OBD2 port.
Yeah,
we're kind of saying the same thing.
We are, yeah.
I'm for anyone at home, there's a minutia to what we're saying. You're asking a question of why do we get the worst part of cell phones into like where you have to always have updates. Worst part of like laptops and game consoles and things like that, where you always have to have updates for security and stuff like that. I'm saying I agree with that. Like, why is that a problem? But also, why are these things not separated?
Yeah, the additional layer of why do they all have to update, and that sucks, and why are there interdependencies there shouldn't be interdependencies on?
Exactly. So, that like both those things are really bad, and from like people that work on designing and updating and maintaining software and components to networks and things like that, that is just not how you run a successful environment.
Yeah.
Like that is just set up to fail. So don't buy a Jeep. And I don't care what model it is. Like if you're doing this to one model, it's eventually coming to others.
Yeah.
The Kias were the same way. The whole Kia hacks where you could just plug in the USB thing. First it was just one model, then it was all the models in the range.
Yeah.
So just don't buy a Jeep. Don't ride in a Jeep. Don't buy a Jeep. Just don't. So last topic. And we've gone long this time, but I want to get to this.
I've been in a ranty mood all week. I've been ranting to people constantly.
We talk about AI and legal documentation all the time. This is more of just like a follow-up, so I know this won't be as long as the other ones.
Yeah.
But should AI be allowed to research stuff for legal documentation? I have an opinion on it. I want to hear what yours is. I have before I was a technologist and I worked in computer tech, I also worked in law. And I know everybody knows this. I wasn't a person who has a a background in like being a lawyer or anything to do with a lawyer's office or anything like that, but I worked in law enforcement. I did that. I had to like prosecute cases and stuff like that on my own. So I did function in that realm. I also have an education in that. So just qualifying this so that people know before we start talking about it. This is like the perfect blend of my two backgrounds.
Yeah.
So back to you.
I think it should be allowed to do research. I don't think it should be allowed to do anything not extensively vetted once it leaves that research phase. So I think if you're a paralegal or something like that, and you're like, hey, I need to draft up a document for something, it should be fine to go to Legal AI and say, hey, Legal AI, here's kind of what I'm looking for. Go grab some stuff for me. And maybe it shoots you out, 20 pages of stuff that's in a good format that reads okay. And then your job now as the paralegal is not to write that 20-page document. It is to go and research every single line to make sure it is accurate. Because I will give AI that it is good at consolidating a ton of information, and law is incredibly large and it's incredibly complex. And there's a lot of man hours involved of going and opening those books or searching on the legal search engines and stuff to find it. But the problem is it can't be a rubber stamp. Like, it can't be, I read it through one time and it looked okay.
Yeah.
It really has to be let's truly go through it, because AI does some funky stuff sometimes. Like I don't think it was law, but it was an academic paper I was reading about that, like, it had, like, in the right, whatever it is, like the Chicago Guide, it had the sources and stuff. But then when you went and looked for those sources, they didn't exist because it made up the sources.
Right.
And so, like, it grabbed somebody, because you looked through it and said, man, all of these, everything sourced from a reputable location were good, just to then find out. Or, like, one of them was it did go back to, like, an actual, like, the paper it took it from, it just didn't paraphrase it correctly. You got to get past that, because especially in law, that has so many implications on people. I'm not going to say don't try and find ways to make those processes more efficient, but it has to have the exact same level of seriousness. That, like, we can't just hand wave and say, oh, an AI messed up. Because if a paralegal messed it up that way, that'd be a huge issue.
It is a huge issue.
Like, someone would lose their job depending on what it was that happened.
More can happen than just that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, at a minor end, if you were a paralegal and you kept writing stuff and there were mistakes, you would get fired.
Yes.
On top of what other legal ramifications for the thing that was wrong. So we can't just be like, oh yeah, that sucks, and AI did it and we just didn't catch it. We just didn't catch it can never be an excuse. That has to have the same penalty of, and we did a really bad job and didn't research it right.
Yeah, and there are, like, things that are happening to these firms that are doing this. The big problem is it's not enough to catch it all.
Yeah.
And the judges aren't catching every single time it happens. Therefore, people aren't getting disbarred. People aren't getting, things like that. And that really should be the penalty for using this. But anyways, before I go on, don't want to interrupt your...
No, I was good. I'm waiting for your
All right.
opinion.
So
now.
my complete analysis of it should not be, at its current stage, AI should not be allowed in the courtroom because it has such a high impact on people's lives and their livelihoods. If you're talking about traffic court, that's one thing. You might be able to convince me there because that's not that big of a deal. But anything that's taking away a driver's license or higher, up to anything that's like murder, rape, theft, anything like that. Anytime that becomes like a thing, there's a lot of nuance to the law. There's a lot of nuance to the things for sentencing. There's a lot of nuance to those things, and a lot of it's open to the interpretation of the judge, the jury, and the prosecution and the defense. So, like, there's a huge amount there. That's why these people go to school for so long and have to take very strenuous tests. And to put that on something that is essentially like a fifth grader in its understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, it's writing book reports.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. It should not be allowed. And if you use it and it's found out, you should be disbarred and fined. That is my 100% no take backsies educated opinion.
Okay. I mean, I think there's a valid take for that. I mean, our stances are not that very different. I'm just saying it. For that first step, maybe, but then you gotta hold the people responsible for that first step really responsible if they mess it up. Just because they can mess it up in the same way regularly,
Oh
right?
yeah, we're not
But
disagreeing at all.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to make it sound like that.
No, no,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not. We got a very similar take on it. You're just taking the step further of like, but that's still just introducing a risk that I don't think is okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's 100% it. Well, it if I was a if I was doing my job again like I used to, and I went to court and I did things, there were certain things that I could do that wouldn't get me in trouble. But if I started, making up charges, falsifying evidence, like things like that, making up case law, I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm not just gonna get fired. I might go to jail.
Yeah.
Like there are things that would happen to me because of that. Now, I don't know, in like the current society, maybe not. Don't make it out like that. But like when I was doing that job, that's what would have happened. It happened to another person that did the same job. They were doing exactly that. And to say that I can just blame it on someone else because it's a robot that made a mistake. Now, you're still responsible because you're presenting that to the court.
Yeah.
And that's why I take that stance. Like,
Gotcha.
if you're going to, like, prosecute someone that's like a living, breathing human being for doing that, then you need to prosecute that person. And just because they're a person that works at the Supreme Court or whatever, that should be even like more like of a reason for you to do it. So absolutely. And some of the judges have said that they'll, submit those paperworks and things like that to have someone disbarred and other things like that. But I think that it should be that should be a high penalty because it messes with people's lives so much. Just like I think going back to the last topic.
Yeah, it's a huge impact on you if your car fucks up.
Right. So if that happens, there should be penalties. That company, it doesn't matter if it's 10, 15, 100,000, those cars should be recalled. There should be regulations put in place that like separate the technologies for how the cars work. Those components should not be connected, and all sorts of other things like that. Like it should not be that those things are allowed to be. And we have allowed corporations too much leeway. We've allowed lawyers and other people like that too much leeway to just kind of do whatever they want to because, we've got this progress thing that we want to do. But ultimately, that is not that good. That is not something that is helpful. And I just, this is ridiculous. This is common sense. Like, don't allow AI in legal proceedings. Don't allow it in that. I mean, unless it's something where you're training it to be able to be good. And then once it's got a proven track record of being able to do those things, then you can start bringing it in to help with like note taking or something like that. Anyways, I'm babbling on now. But yeah, we agree on that topic. So this has been season 8, episode 20 of the Beer and Broadband podcast. It's slated to come out on November 10th, 2025. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.